Shalom from Austin, Texas. I'm here with my wife visiting our son and daughter-in-law and our 10th grandson. So I need to talk to you about what's going on a little more in Israel, even though that we're here enjoying family. Our hearts are still knit together with our brothers and sisters in Israel, those whom we support, those whom we love and know we become together as family over the years. And their pain is very real to us. So I think it's important to know what this deal is lately that is coming from every direction, this unfathomable, unreasonable, and irrational hatred that is being directed towards not just Israel, but to the Jews. So from Psalm 83, I'm going to quote it by memory, so it's not going to be exact. So I'm asking you to look it up. Most people do not see the Psalms as being prophetic in nature, but Psalm 83 clearly is. It dealt with them in their time, in Israel's time, because the neighbors conspired against them. They plotted an evil plan, a crafty plan. A plan that they've been crafting for a long time. This is from Psalm 83, but it's very pertinent for today. This is not something that happened overnight. The invasion of Israel was at least 1 year in the making, and they did such incredible, intriguing ways of executing this plan, so they had it down pat before they entered into the land. So in Psalm 83, it says, these people, your enemies, O God, have crafted together a plan against your people, and they've devised this evil plan to destroy them. They said, come, let us conspire together in covenant to wipe Israel out as a nation, that they should exist no more. So this is not something new. Some people think, wow, this is from all the pressure that the Jews have placed against the Palestinian peoples. They're like South Africa, made them into an apartheid nation. They don't have the same rights, etc., etc. These things are not true. And they need to be known. If a crafty plan is devised by an enemy, that enemy is sourced in the enemy of all people, who is Satan. He's a liar, he's a thief, and he's a murderer. And he's proved himself to be able to be the prince of the power of the air, the ruler of this present age, and conspire with those who have conspired with him to destroy God's people. Why would they want to do that? Well, this began thousands of years ago, and it's something that Ezekiel called an ancient enmity. He mentioned that twice, an ancient hostility that existed from the time the Jews began their 400 years in slavery in Egypt, when their nearby neighbor, even though they were not a nation yet, they were a nation of people but without a country. They were slaves for 4 centuries almost. To Egypt, and Egypt tried to literally wipe them out by working them to death. But it didn't work. You know the story of the Exodus. And then as they went from Egypt into the promised land, they went through the wilderness, and they fought against nation after nation because they had to cross their territories to get to Canaan land, which was future tense Israel. In God's mind, it was Israel, though, and that's important to remember. God gave it to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob century before that. So here we go. They go into the land, but they're hated because there are numerous people, and they are powerful. They notice that this supernatural deity is with them, and they're afraid, and they figure if we can get to the people, we can get to their God and end the story. But it didn't happen, and it will never happen. Every nation and empire that's come after them has tried and not succeeded. Now the question is not so much why Israel, it's are they so hated? What did they do so wrong? And what are they doing today that is considered so utterly wrong, that these heinous crimes against them, the assault that came out of nowhere, eclipsed in just one single day, where 1,400 people were killed. Soldiers, women and children, elderly, Holocaust survivors, babies. I mean, I'm not going to go into details, but it is heinous, it's barbarous. This is what I would like you to know, though, is that there's only one solution to this. Somebody said, will there ever be a solution to the Middle East peace problem, even if Hamas is ridden? Well, the answer is there will not be one unless it travels from individual to individual. And this is also what we've seen as a ministry in Cover My People, that there are Arab believers, there are Palestinian believers, there are Iranian Muslim-born believers in Israel that love the Jewish people. And they're raised in the same sequence of day after day being taught to hate and to pray for the destruction of the land of Israel and its people. What makes the difference is Yeshua. There's no other way. There's no other way that would dissolve now the growing animosity and hatred within Israel. The citizens of Israel are angry, and rightly so. But angry to the point of trying to destroy the enemy is not a productive way of life. The only solution is through Jesus the Messiah. He takes this irrational hatred, which now might seem rational, to say we have every reason to hate. Well, hatred really is not a possession that we've been given from God. It's not a gift. We're to hate evil, but not to hate people. So how do you make that distinction? It's only through the purposeful acceptance of the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of the living God, Ruach HaKodesh, working through an individual. First, we receive him, we believe him, and we act accordingly. That's the only answer to the Middle East peace solution. Jesus is the peace table. We come to him, he breaks the hostility, we learn, it's a process to live together, but the hatred is dissolved and the love begins to grow. So just keep that in mind as you're reading these scriptures. A lot of people are suddenly getting interested in the Old Testament, which I think is wonderful, but they're grasping hold of pieces of it and expounding on it, and it seems like they know a lot and it's interesting, but it's not fully, the understanding is still incomplete. And I'll tell you why. Israel is not out to destroy their neighbors. Israel was given these commandments that they've struggled to live by for centuries, and most of the time failed. But in those instructions, it was a very simple thing. Yeshua made it very simple. He said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. He's quoting from the Old Testament. And love your neighbor as yourself. He's quoting from the Old Testament. This is what the Jews were called to live by, and they were not successful for most of the days. But Jesus basically closed the book. He said, lesson finished, class dismissed. Live accordingly, and we'll get along together. But really, he knew that the only way they could is if they had the nature to do so. And this is what his life was about. Giving them this, like a rabbit, like a carrot on a stick, giving them some kind of lead. This is a righteousness you got to live by, but you don't have it on your own. You need to accumulate. You need to accept it and then accumulate its value through your life so that you can truly love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. One last thing, in Psalm 83, the psalmist is saying, these people, you got to take care of them, God. They want to get us. They're capable of doing it. They conspired together. All the nations that surround us, the nations that he describes in Psalm 83 are nations that still exist to this day by name. They're neighboring nations, but also some that have gone by way of history, and then they're not here any longer. But towards the end of that psalm, he said that dishonor them, Lord, disgrace them. May their faces be filled with shame for what they're doing so that they could turn to you. Wow, that's pretty incredible. Turn to you and what? Turn to you and receive the same grace that you would give to us as Jews. Receive the same grace that will give them the capability to live together in peace. They weren't out to get them. The Jews are not out to get their enemies. If they were, they could have done so a long time ago. They are much more powerful. Their military strength is not comparable, and that's just a fact. But they didn't do that. They lived, the IDF, which is the Army and their Air Force and Navy, is the Israeli Defense Force. They're defending their right to live on the land that God has given them. So we need to know the truth so that the truth can set us free. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. If you can't do that, if you can't start there and do that, then you need to get on your knees before God, whether you're on your knees mentally, emotionally, or physically, but in a position where you could receive from God and say, God, I need to be set free. I want to love you with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, so that I can love my neighbor, even you who live in America. I'm sure you have neighbors you don't love. So just be honest with God and say, look, I'm the one that is in need of this spiritual life and the life that I would live. And forgive me for not so up until now. Shalom, shalom.